Staff up. That is the demand coming from registered nurses across the country today, including at SSM Health, St. Louis University Hospital, participating in National Day of Action. They join thousands of others demanding their employers address the current staffing crisis.
We're asking for more nurses to take care of the community, safer ratios, more security within the hospital so that the staff can be safe against, disgruntled patients and families because we're not getting to them in time because of the nurse-patient ratio.
National Nurses United reports when nurses are forced to care for too many patients at one time, patients are at higher risk of preventable medical errors, avoidable complications, falls, injuries, and increased length of hospital stays.